Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Got another job. I'm not sure how many people will be interested in this. I'm working on the 2015 Volkswagen Jetta. I got a couple things. If you recall, I did in one of my previous videos, I did spring replacement in the front on the front struts that had cracked because of corrosion and bad roads. One of the comments made was, that was about 3 years ago, one of the comments made was I should have replaced the whole assembly. At the time I couldn't get them, now I can, and sure enough, my struts have gone. The rattling, of the inside of the strut. So, but on top of that, what's also happened is the wheel bearings have gone. Now, I was going to do a video inside the car showing, turning the car or back and forth to try to show the tone. But frankly, the bearings are so bad, it sounded like I had really big snow tires on all the time. Now, you can certainly notice the difference when you start veering left and right. The tone changed, but it was so loud that I don't know if you would even be able to pick up my voice, frankly, on the video. So I picked up some parts. I've got replacement wheel bearings. These are pretty nice because they come with the replacement bolts as well. And this time I picked up a quick strut. So this happens to be MONROE, not sponsored, but don't really feel like changing everything out again. A little bit of a waste, but like I said, that's all I had at the time. So I'm going to do a fairly quick video on this because there's boatloads of videos on this. We already got the car partially apart, so and some of the bolts left. The bolts on the top of the strut have loosened off. The lower ball joint is loosened off. I have to loosen off the bolt that pinches the bottom of the strut, and I have to disconnect the sway bar link, and that'll get the strut out. For the wheel bearing, you got to take the caliper off, caliper mounting bolt, the rotor, backing plate. Actually, I can probably leave the backing plate on. And then there's 4 bolts on the side. Nothing to this, but it uses a lot of funny fasteners, relatively speaking. So they're called triple squares, so it's a 12-point. Torques, and some odd sizes too. There's a 16 millimeter socket for, I think it was for the, I think it was the lower ball joint. So some oddball stuff. So it's certainly not easy to come by. Not in your typical tray of sockets, that's for sure. So I'll go through this kind of briefly. Like I said, it's pretty straightforward. I might not cover much in the strut removal. Like I said, it's bolt in the bottom, 3 bolts in the top, and the sway bar link, and it's out of there. What I do is disconnect, like I said, the bottom ball joint so I can pull the strut out to get some clearance. And that sets me up as well, by the way, for getting the wheel bearing out. So coincidentally, as soon as I had to do the wheel bearings, I figured, well, I'm going to put new struts in as well. So hope you enjoy this. Like I said, I'll probably not film a whole lot of detail, and I'll just show you some of the more interesting parts if you like. Okay, so things didn't go terribly well. Manageable, but nothing was easy. So to start off with the first, these nuts in the top of the bearing of the strut are just pressed in place. See a little bit of a knurl there. Well, they were pretty rusted, so I had to cut the heads off to get them loose. Secondly, the bolts that go into the back of the hub were in pretty darn tight. So I decided basically to take the whole strut assembly with hub out, just so I could maneuver it, because the strut was sticking. It was rusted into the knuckle here, the hub, I should say. So what I wound up having to do was drive this chisel down a little bit to spread it a little bit to get things out.
I was going to take also out the speed sensor, wheel speed sensor, but I didn't need to. But torches were necessary to get the hub out. They were good and hot. The bearing got a lot more damage from taking it out, so it wasn't this bad until I started to whack on it. But anyways, I had to use torches on the back of the hub to get the bolts loose. Had to take off the tie rod and of course to get the whole assembly out underneath the car. Not sure how well this will show. So took off the bracket that retains the brake line, just simply so I got more space. I can set the caliper out of the way. Getting the axle shaft off, no problem at all. All the bolts came out pretty easy. A few tight ones, a bit of a mess. I got to sweep up here a bit, but really that was the hardest thing, was actually getting the strut and the strut assembly. And to do that, I also got to take the windshield wipers off and the covers that go in the back. So a little bit more work. I'm going to sweep up as I'm walking all through Rust right now. A little bit more work. One's done. It's been, I think I'm up to 3 hours to get this apart so far. Really wasn't expecting a whole lot of this. But other than that, and a whole pile of sockets, like I said, lots of unique sizes here. Got for the axle nut, this was a 24. Got 16 for some of the bolts in the assembly, and there's another oddball as well. An 18 as well. And like I said, a mixture of 12 points for some of the things, some Torx. Where's the Torx? Is another small 12 point. I think that was for the tie rod end. The Torx for the actual brake caliper. Brake caliper didn't come off. I mean, the rotor didn't come off too easy either. Anyhow, I'm going to take a little bit of a time out to clean the hub. As I said, the inside here is all got to be, well, actually the other side is all got to be cleaned out now so that the new hub fits in. I also want to clean the bore of the knuckle here, so I can get the new strut in there as well. So I got the side put back together. Like I said, I'm not showing a lot of detail this because it's a simple job, at least I thought it was. So this side's all done, and got bolts in for the struts. No real surprises there. I started off on this side, and I got a bit of a false sense of security. Getting a little bit dark now, although it just started, just short days now. These bolts all came out, so I started thinking everything was going to be great. Well, that's not what happened. I got the whole strut assembly out, and what happened is I didn't clean the bolts heading, and those are a 12 point or a triple square, and because I didn't clean them all the way out of the rust, I couldn't get it fully seated, and I stripped the teeth off this one. So I got real frustrated with that. So what I wound up doing, and I also broke off one of the bolts on the lower ball joints. I'm going to have to put another one in. Same problem, corrosion. So over torqued that. I'm not sure how that happened. Those bolts look fine though. And so to get it loose, getting back to what I was talking about, I was going to take a torch. I heated up the other bolts just so I wouldn't run into the problem. So again, just basically rushing. Took cut off wheel, cut into the bearing hub, which is obviously scrap anyways, and then I took that chisel, and just tapped around just to break the thread. So now there's nothing holding And I was really careful not to damage the actual mating surface. I kept above it so that the mating surface of the hub, keep saying hub, of the knuckle is going to be protected. Got to clean that up. So I'm going to start tapping on this, knock it out. Then I'll probably get the lower ball joint out. Again, I won't show those details. Again, this should have been easy, but again, rusted bolts is the only real problem. So just matter of knocking that hub back and forth loose like I did in the last one. It's all garbage, so it doesn't matter if I damage it anyways. And I'll do the same thing. I'm taking a garage is a mess now. But anyways, I took a wire brush. Once I've got the hub out, clean the bore, clean the surface. There's a wire, 4.5 inch wire, 4.5 inch grinder with a wire wheel mounted on it. And with one mounted on the drill, I'll clean out the inside, coat it up with rust-proven paint again, and put it back together. So again, I'm not going to show a lot of details because, you know, as far as work goes, other than the complexity of the tools, because of the complexity of the tools, it's not that hard of a job, just bolting things together. But it's really a whole around preparation as well. So putting that together is pretty easy. Oh, by the way, I didn't show this either. I put a bottle jack that was underneath the hub itself. That allowed me to take a bit of pressure off various components every now and then. So for instance, the upper tie rod connection or link, that just helped that out a little bit. So if I don't run into problems, I won't bring you back for too much other than when I close it up. Maybe I'll show you the finished installation. So I thought I'd bring you back for this. So you can see, this is where I made my cut. Just like a, I'll get my thumb out of the way. Just like about a 1/16 of an inch or so. So the actual mating surface was never touched. So there's the actual back of the hub. There's what's left of the nut and the bolt. But that's all I did. And the only reason I did that was to cut through the nut, or sorry, the bolt, so it would release it. And I had just a fraction of a thread, but the chisel was able to, you know, you can see the little divot there from the chisel, was able to just turn that enough to get it loose. So that's what I meant by cutting it. Cut deep enough to free up the seized bolt, and just tapped it off. This thing's all rattly. And again, in here, you can see what the inside I'm dealing with. Whole bore here is just coated. So I'm going to clean all that up again. Like I said, wire wheels, scraping tools. I'll clean this entire surface up as well. You can see that's the only mark I got there, just a bit of a shine. I'm not even sure if that's from what I did or not. It might have been. But clean that all up. Same with the where the strut fits into. Anyways, I thought you'd find that a little bit interesting. It worked. The reason I didn't just use a torch and blast the head off is I was worried the heat might damage the knuckle. I'm going to clean up a little bit now and get ready to, well, first of all, wire brush and then clean up. Okay, so decided to turn the camera back on. New hub's installed. Put a little bit of grease in the pocket on the hub, really just for corrosion. Doesn't need it, but made sure it fit, the hub fit. I'll roll it over here a bit. Made sure the hub fit, did a dry fit first, so it fit tight, the mounting face onto the hub, so no interferences, no binding, nothing like that. Painted all this up, again, just for corrosion control. Okay, so not 100% sure where the battery went dead, but again, painted the hub, brushed off the rust, painted the hub for corrosion control. New U-joint. It kind of bugs me a little bit because that uses an 18mm nut for the ball joint, but it uses a Torx type end. So now so you can put a Torx, and this one's a little bit of an awkward one. You're holding the stud and you're tightening down the bolt at the same time of the ball joint. So now I have a Torx on this side and I have a triple square on the other side. Twice as much work to do. But the rest is pretty straightforward. I got the strut secured in the top. You can probably do this a bunch of ways. The only reason I'm putting it together in two different pieces is just because of the weight, that's all. So a little awkward, so this will probably be a bit of struggle. But I'll show you what I do. Just a minute. And this will probably be the biggest challenge, is to get the knuckle back in. The lighting's probably going to be horrible for this and the camera angles, but so I just turned the strut because there's a little metal plate in the back that goes into the slot of the knuckle. I keep saying knuckle and hub interchangeably. Hub, knuckle. So I'm walking that back up now. And it's a bit of a trick, that's for sure. And this had to be spread apart last time for the other side when I took it apart. Okay, well, I'm going to turn the camera off so you can get in there better. It's just a wrestle, that's all. All I'm doing now is getting the ball joint lined up, which they are, and it's in. Now, it's not seated, and by the way, this is the way this tie rod end is supposed to be. I was really surprised, but on the back side, so it's got a bit of an angle. That is what it is. Like I said, that's the way the car came. I checked when I did it last time, and that was it. So it's all in there gently, but what I'm going to do now is the strut's not in all the way. So I'm going to do, like I said before, I'll jack up the whole assembly just to get it snugged up in the, seated I should say, in the strut. That's not there yet, so a couple of taps with a rubber mallet. Whoops. That wasn't good. Maybe a bit gentler next time. Doesn't seem to be wanting to go in as well. The challenge with this is it puts a bit of an angle, or not a straight force on the strut, so it kind of binds up a little bit. Okay, you're not going to be able to see much here, but what I did is I moved the jack. Problem I was having is it wasn't square, so I just moved the jack back so it's putting a force on the center line of the strut, so it comes up more square. So it popped right in now. Yeah, there it is there. So now I'm going to put in all the nuts and bolts. I'm just going to run down loosely for now so everything's in place, and then I'll get ready to torque everything. Okay, working from the top, I've tightened down the 3 top bolts for the strut top bearing. Let's see if we can get a light on seal these. I've done the tie rod end link, tightened down and torqued. The pinch bolt, right there, the pinch bolt goes through there, is tight and torqued. The bolt that holds on the brake line is tightened down. The tire speed sensor is tightened down. The tie rod end has been tightened. The 2 bolts, I'm going to show you one. 2 bolts for the caliper is tightened. The spindle nut is tightened. And you're probably not going to see this, but let's see, yeah. And I don't know if that's going to show up all right. I can't bend down that far. Yep. The 3 bolts for the lower ball joint, and I had already torqued the ball joint into the knuckle earlier. So I'll take one more last look through this, but I think everything's ready to go back together. So I'm trying something a little bit different this time. I'm going to set the car down, so I've gone through everything a couple times as a matter of fact, just to make sure all the bolts all the bolts are tight, everything's back the way it should be. Now I haven't done the lug nuts yet, but I'm going to wait till the car's on the ground. Now I've got to do an alignment on it, but when you lower the car down, the tires will keep the car from going into its natural set position. They'll basically hold it or bind it up a little bit. So typically what you do is you get like 12 by 12 inch sheet metal with grease between them to allow the wheels to slide. And try something different because I don't have sheet metal right now, or at least I don't want to cut up another sheet. I've got a couple pieces of plastic, so I'm going to see how that works, and then I'm going to start doing the alignment. So what I'm going to do here is to see if we can see the, going to lower down the side of the car slowly and see if we can see the, oh, that wasn't slowly. Well, that's the other side up. Let's see how the other side works. Getting pretty dark now, so don't know how well this will. You'll see all this. So just a couple, again, doubled up sheets. No, that's not working. Okay, I picked up these home alignment plates from Amazon. There's all kinds of companies that sell them. You're looking for get the light up here. You're looking for about an 1/8 inch. I kind of like basically as little toe-in as possible. You know, so I'm aiming for close to 0.16 of an inch. Well, I got a 1/2 inch right now. So just double check the plates to make sure there wasn't something wrong. So that's a fair bit. So the tie rod ends in the back. So that means I got to take a little bit out from either side, or tighten them in, I should say. Turn them in a little bit. So I'm going to go for about a turn in on either side. Maybe I'll start with a half turn and see how that works out. So you may not be able to see this very well, but that's at 3/4 of an inch from the 6 foot mark. And that one over there is 5/8 of an inch, so it's got an 1/8 inch toe in. More or less, like I said, it's pretty hard to measure. I know I am not, yeah, an 1/8 of an inch toe in, it looks like. Now, I know that that's probably going to be double, I know it's going to be double checked. Take car for a ride, let everything settle in, and I'll have to check it again. So for now, that's going to be good enough. And on top of that, I'm sure the steering wheel isn't centered. So I've got another, probably 5 or 6 iterations of the of moving back and forth for the alignment to get it right. Oh, I'm not sure when the camera went dead, or I should say the video froze. Anyways, I think if I'm replaying it, I was just beginning to talk about the job. So this was more frustrating than I expected. I've done this job, front wheel bearings and front springs, struts. I've had 3 Jettas now, and I've done it at least a couple times in each one. These are all high mileage cars. This one's 300,000 kilometers, so about what's that, 180,000 miles. One previously I had to that was, or the first one I should say, went to 500,000 kilometers. So 300,000 miles. What made this really frustrating was the level of rust. I've had some pretty challenging times getting some of these bearings out. I wasn't expecting it, and I guess that's what kind of let my guard down. The stripping out the bolt, it was frustrating. Same issues before, being down low was frustrating. The work is not complicated work. Again, a little dangerous, obviously, dealing with springs, so you want to make sure the car is well supported with jacks. I kind of wish I had got it higher. It's kind of a theme I've been having for a while, but it could have gone easier. Could have been worse. I got through all the problems, but it was frustrating. It didn't just go smoothly, I guess, but I got through it all. So in terms of the tools you need for the job for this is fairly high. They'd probably give this a 4. Not from really expensive tools. I've kind of laid them out for your, clean up the garage a little bit. Kind of laid it out. I've got, not shown here, is I got a couple scissor jacks. Impact tool, definitely need that. I think that's a 500 or 600 foot-pounds. Definitely need that. And Torx, 55 millimeter Torx. The 12 points. A smaller Torx for, I think it's a 27. For some other joints, like it's a mixture. A lot of the suspension components are the ball joint itself is got either a Torx or a 12-point end for holding it, so you can turn the end. So a lot of times, because of that, you've got to use, sorry, moving around this way, you've got to use a box end wrench. In this case, it's ratcheting. So those are unusual things. Then you get into the sizes. So the axle nut is a, or is that 25, I think, 24. A 24-inch, a 12-point, 15-inch, or 16-inch. That's a weird size. And then you've got an 18-inch. So again, not normal size. This I think is normal. This is, I think, a 21, yeah, normal size. 17, of course, for the wheels and a few other spots. Torque wrench for tightening up bolts after the fact. Hammers. And, got into this because of the corrosion, but for cutting off the one nut on the hub, cleaning things up. These alignment plates, which work out real nice. I've got another video on a string box, but this was just quicker to set this up. And since I'm just really, the car was close. So
I think that's also a saying. I'm going to drive it back and forth. So I'm going to insert at the very end. This was closing, but I just got frustrated because the camera froze up and it was getting late, so I packed it in. I've actually taken the car for a drive, and the alignment was actually really close. That 1/8 inch, which is the maximum, you'll see that in the video, it was pretty close, but the wheels are clearly turned a little bit to the left. So when I hold the steering centered, it'll turn to the left. And seeing how it's towed in at the maximum amount, I don't like that. I would rather it be, it's between a 0 and 1/8. It's 0.16, I think, is the actual number. So what I'm going to do is, because it's basically turning towards the left, if you like, I'm going to adjust the passenger side, the right side, tie rod in, and that'll correct both the pull to the left, and it'll make less towing as well. So I'm going to do the next. I'm not going to videotape that. I'll double check as well before I even do anything the car to make sure that the drive there and back hasn't changed anything. But I think that's just a relatively minor adjustment, and it's close enough. The car runs great. You'll see that in the video as well. In terms of difficulty, if you didn't have the corrosion issues, this isn't really that challenging of a job. It's simple assembly and disassembly, not really complicated pieces whatsoever. It's probably only a 2 out of 5. Now, in terms of all the parts, and I can't remember the details, I used MONROE quick struts, not sponsor. I had just, in the previous video, I had just changed out the springs. That was 3 years ago. The struts have since worn out. So now I could find quick struts. I think they were about 60 or 80 US dollars, so about 100 or so Canadian dollars, which is absolutely fantastic. The hubs themselves were 67 or so dollars each, so another $120. The lower ball joint was $70. So I don't know. I think that's roughly 300, 320 or so. 320, that's a long job. If you're taking that to the shop, I think you'd be into it for $1,200, $1,500. So, I've saved $500 to $700 doing myself. It's not really a job for the average person. You probably should have a little bit of experience with repairs before you go into suspension work. You got to make sure you double check all the connections, retorque everything as well. Being at suspension, I don't think I'd take it on if you're not confident. But again, well worth it for me. Like I said, I've done front suspension work a long time in many different cars. So going through thoroughly, checking afterwards, is money well spent in your safety. Anyhow, I'm going to wrap it up there. Like I said, I'm going to post a little short driving video after the fact for shits and giggles. But it's, like I said, the car performs surprisingly well with that roughed in alignment. So I'm going to fix it up, and if I find anything else, I'll put in the comments. But overall, pretty happy. Once I got past my frustration. Oh yeah, I also forgot oxyacetylene. I had to heat up a lot of bolts as well to get things loose, and frankly I kind of wish I would have used it a bit more in a couple of others that snapped off. So oxyacetylene, not something an average person would have as well. You might get by with a little propane torch or a butane type torch. I've done that, just gotta spend a lot on the fuel to get that happen. Anyhow, hope you enjoy this video. There's lots of them like it. If you want to see more on this type thing, and if you want more detail, let me know. I'll probably put a little links to some of the parts I bought. Not saying they're the best, just suited me for the delivery and whatnot. But if you want to see more detail, put in the comments. I'd certainly appreciate the feedback. I've been doing less detail. I've just been talking about what I've done, not showing in fast motion me doing work. But if you want to see more, if you want to see the actual nut by nut assembly and disassembly, let me know, and I'll make some adjustments. So again, thanks for watching. So take the car for a test drive, and I'm really happy. First of all, the howling's gone. I didn't get any befores, but it really sounded like it had mud terrain tires on. So right now, if you can see, no hands. Steering wheel's almost a little dangerous, so I'll give sure get some
comments on that. Steering wheel is almost perfectly centered. When I do center it, I'm getting a slight amount of pull to the into oncoming traffic, so not good. But that actually works to my advantage with being 1/8 of a toe in. What I need to do then is to move so it's towed to the left. So because I'm towed in, I'm going to take the right wheel and pull it in or point it out more. That'll give me less toe in, and that'll probably correct the slight offset in the steering wheel. So I'll probably go about half a turn, a quarter to half a turn there, and try that again. But overall, really happy. No howling. You have to take my word for it. It was loud and quite a bit of variation when it goes back and forth. Steering wheel feels good and solid. Like I said, no hands, and it's good and straight. The suspension, nice and stiff as it was when the car was new. Still get a teeny bit of a rattle, and it seems like it's on the driver's side. So I'm going to see if I can find out what that is. Anyway, so we'll make some adjustments and see how that works out.